She doesn't know what she's giving me. With these 23 devastating seconds of audio, a foreign operative exposed the First Lady's secret meetings that shook the White House to its core. Behind closed doors, Representative Jasmine Crockett uttered one name, Dragan Petrovich. And in just 36 seconds, Melania Trump reportedly broke composure, knocking over a glass of water before vanishing behind a door. What the First Lady was hiding wasn't just personal, it was national security. And one congresswoman risked everything to bring it to light. The explosive revelations that followed would not only threaten careers, but potentially compromise America's diplomatic standing worldwide. This wasn't just another Washington scandal. This was a national security breach hiding in plain sight, protected by the most powerful office in the land. When power and secrecy collide, the truth becomes the first casualty. But sometimes all it takes is one fearless voice to shatter the silence. If you believe power should be held accountable no matter how high it goes, smash that like button and subscribe. Because this story of courage versus corruption is just getting started. The documents you're about to see were never meant to reach the public, and the conversations you'll hear were supposed to stay buried forever. It began with an encrypted message Jasmine Crockett almost deleted. Late at night, after a Capitol Hill interview about cyber intrusions, a mysterious email appeared in her inbox. They lied about the First Lady's trips. Check the logs. Inside was a zip file containing something extraordinary. Raw, unredacted White House travel records showing Melania Trump's private international movements. And beside her name in 4 separate entries was someone who shouldn't have been there, Dragan Petrovich. The logs revealed a pattern that made Crockett's blood run cold. 4 solo trips by the First Lady in 6 months, to Brussels, Prague, Geneva, and Berlin. Each time, Secret Service records mysteriously thinned out. Each time, Petrovich appeared in the same location. And each time, major policy shifts followed. This wasn't just unusual, it was potentially catastrophic. What made these documents even more alarming was their origin. They came from deep within the White House security apparatus, from someone with high-level clearance who was willing to risk everything to expose what they believed was a serious breach. The whistleblower remained anonymous, but their message was clear. Something dangerous was happening at the highest levels of American power, and nobody was stopping it. On one side, Jasmine Crockett, a fearless congresswoman who had previously cracked voter suppression patterns in Alabama and never backed down from uncomfortable fights. She wasn't part of the Washington elite. She was a former public defender who came to Congress with one mission: to speak truth to power, regardless of party or position. On the other, the full might of the White House, protecting a mysterious Serbian art broker with ties to illicit financial networks who somehow kept appearing next to America's First Lady with no security clearance. Behind him stood a shadowy network of international financiers and art dealers who operated in the spaces between legitimate business and sanctioned activities. The battlefield would be room 2172 of the Rayburn House office building, a closed-door congressional hearing with no cameras, no media, and nowhere to hide. If you think our government should protect our interests, not foreign operatives, hit that like button right now. Crockett didn't walk into this fight unprepared. She consulted Rufus Kane, an ex-NSA data analyst who confirmed the logs were genuine and deeply troubling. This ain't a soap opera, he warned her. That's espionage-level exposure. This is national security. This is treason if it's proven. When she announced her intention to raise the issue at an upcoming hearing, Rufus was blunt. You're out of your mind. That room doesn't want accountability, it wants obedience. But Jasmine Crockett hadn't come to Washington to obey. She'd come to protect America. The night before the hearing, she meticulously prepared her approach. This wasn't about scandal or headlines. It was about national security. She knew the White House would try to paint her as a publicity seeker, a partisan hack looking for attention. They would question her motives, her methods, her very patriotism. But the documents spoke for themselves, and the pattern they revealed was impossible to ignore. 4 separate meetings, 4 policy shifts, 4 security breaches, all connected to one man who had no business being anywhere near the First Lady. As she reviewed the logs one final time, a particular detail caught her eye. During the Geneva meeting, Petrovich and Melania had been in the same hotel while President Trump was negotiating arms deals with NATO officials across town. The timing wasn't just suspicious, it was damning. Whatever was happening in those unrecorded hours could potentially compromise America's strategic position on the world stage. The question wasn't whether she should bring this forward, it was how anyone could justify keeping it hidden. If you believe national security should transcend politics, drop a like and share this with someone who needs to see it. The tension in room 2172 was suffocating as Crockett took her seat. No cameras, no media, just high-clearance committee members, two White House liaisons, and a sleep-deprived national security lawyer. Chairman Lowell Nash opened the hearing on security vulnerabilities in executive travel protocol and gave Crockett the floor. Her opening salvo was measured but unmistakable. My concerns are about a pattern, not a single breach. In reviewing access logs tied to the First Lady's international travel, I came across something unusual. The temperature in the room shifted instantly. A White House liaison, gray-haired, navy suit, earpiece screaming national security detail, leaned forward and whispered urgently to his colleague. Crockett continued, undeterred. I've identified a specific name, Dragan Petrovich, that appears in conjunction with four of the First Lady's unscheduled meetings abroad. From two chairs away, Representative Howard Steele scoffed. Are we seriously entertaining rumors about the First Lady's travel companions now? His smirk was designed to diminish her, to make her claims seem petty and personal. Crockett didn't take the bait. This isn't about rumors, she fired back. It's about gaps in our national security records. If a private civilian with alleged ties to high-risk financial networks is repeatedly appearing beside the First Lady during diplomatic trips off the books, don't we have an obligation to ask why? The room fell into stunned silence. Chairman Nash finally broke it. Representative Crockett, are you suggesting the First Lady is involved in collusion with a foreign operative? Her voice didn't waver. I'm saying the logs point to a relationship that requires oversight. I'm not here to suggest affairs or personal drama. I'm here to ask how a man flagged in 3 Interpol notices ended up in proximity to the First Lady with no documented clearance. The White House liaison's face hardened. Other committee members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the routine security discussion they had expected. This was a direct challenge to the integrity of the White House itself. The air in the room grew heavy with unspoken tension as everyone present realized the magnitude of what Crockett was alleging. This wasn't just about protocol violations. This was about potential compromise at the highest level of American government. If you're shocked that this could happen in America, drop a like and share this video now. The White House liaison immediately tried to shut her down. This line of questioning is not pre-approved. We were not informed of these documents prior to this hearing. That's because they weren't obtained through official channels, Crockett admitted plainly. They were leaked, and I vetted them for accuracy before I brought them here. You're admitting to using illicit documents? Steele fired back, thinking he'd caught her. I'm admitting that when classified travel information shows a breach that nobody's talking about, I don't look the other way. Then she reached into her case and slid the folder across the table. Her first power move in a high-stakes chess game. The older liaison stood up, visibly rattled. We strongly advise this be entered off the record. These files may constitute an active investigation or be subject to executive privilege. You're welcome to redact them, Crockett replied coolly, after we verify the data in committee. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Chairman Nash nodded cautiously. Proceed carefully. Crockett opened the folder and flipped to the Prague entry. On November 6th, the First Lady landed at Václav Havel Airport under diplomatic clearance. According to the logs, she spent 4 hours off-grid, during which Dragan Petrovich checked into the same hotel wing. Surveillance cameras were offline. No Secret Service log was filed for that window. By now, aides along the back wall were shifting nervously, looking at each other. The White House reps had stopped taking notes entirely. We need to know what was discussed, Crockett continued, her voice gaining strength. We need to know who cleared this man's proximity to the First Lady, and we need to understand whether these meetings compromise federal negotiations that occurred during the same time. Representative Steele leaned in again, slower this time. You're playing with fire, Congresswoman. She turned to face him directly. So be it. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Everyone present understood that Crockett had just crossed a line from which there was no return. She had directly challenged not just the First Lady's judgment, but the entire security apparatus of the White House. The implications were staggering. Either there was a massive security breach that had been deliberately covered up, or someone very high in the administration was facilitating these meetings for reasons unknown. Either way, careers would end over this. The question was whose. If you believe in holding power accountable no matter the cost, hit that subscribe button right now. The tension in the room had become unbearable. Jasmine hadn't planned to say the name out loud again. She was going to let the documents speak, but Steele's attempts to twist the conversation pushed her further than intended. She tapped the Prague log page, looked around the table, and spoke with clarity that cut through the stale congressional air. The man's name is Dragan Petrovich. He's not a staffer. He's not a diplomat. He's not cleared. But he has been in the same foreign facilities as the First Lady 4 times this year with no oversight. No one breathed. Not the aides, not the lawyers, not even the security officers flanking the back door. What Jasmine couldn't know was that Melania Trump herself was watching from a private, secure room in the White House residence. At 2:46 p.m., when Jasmine said Petrovich's name out loud, Melania stood up abruptly, knocking over a half-full glass of water. A young aide saw her stumble slightly before vanishing behind a side door. The stream was turned off seconds later. Back in the chamber, Chairman Nash tapped the table with his pen. This session is hereby moved to restricted legal review. Committee members may remain. All White House observers and external aides are to exit the room until further instruction. When the door clicked shut behind them, Nash looked directly at Jasmine. Do you understand what you may have just opened? I understand the risk, she replied, but the bigger risk is ignoring the connection between Petrovich and foreign policy compromises tied to these trips. You're suggesting there's a pattern of influence? I'm suggesting we've already been compromised, and no one wants to admit it. Across from her, Representative Steele pulled out a folded document from his jacket. A response memo from the office of the First Lady crafted earlier that morning, likely in anticipation of questioning. You're not the only one who got advanced intel, he said. The East Wing denies knowing Petrovich. They claim he's never met the First Lady. Jasmine didn't blink. Then explained the cross-referenced hotel logs, the travel receipts in his name billed to the same facility, the blackout windows on security footage. Explain why their phones pinged the same tower for 4 consecutive nights in Geneva. Steele leaned back, arms crossed. You're walking the line between investigation and slander. And you're avoiding the truth, she shot back. The gauntlet had been thrown down. There was no turning back now. Not for Jasmine, not for the White House, not for anyone involved in this rapidly expanding scandal. The bombshell that followed would shake Washington to its core. If you want to see power held accountable, smash that like button now. Within hours of Jasmine leaving that hearing room, the White House machinery kicked into high gear. Security rerouted access to the East Wing. Internal communications were locked down. Staffers were ordered to disable personal phones. One junior press liaison described it as a total shutdown, like someone pulled the plug on normal. Meanwhile, Melania Trump was reportedly locked in a private meeting with 2 of the president's national security advisors. Whatever Jasmine had lit was already burning, but she wasn't done yet. As she stepped into the hallway, her phone was vibrating nonstop. A congressional aide intercepted her near the elevator. White House counsel just issued a classified block on the East Wing's digital communication records. They're locking down Melania's files. How fast? Jasmine asked. Already done. That meant 2 things. First, they were taking her seriously. Second, they were scared. A voice message from Rufus confirmed her suspicions. Whoever sent you those logs had East Wing passcode clearance. They were within 10 feet of the First Lady's private office. And get this, Petrovich's name showed up in a restricted customs flag last year. He was stopped in Miami and released without formal processing. DHS scrubbed the entry. That doesn't happen without White House intervention. This wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was a breach that reached deep into executive protection procedures. When Jasmine returned to her office, her chief of staff, Lionel Pruitt, was waiting with panic in his eyes. White House just went on background with a statement. They're calling your remarks slanderous, reckless, and an abuse of classified material. They're floating ethics violations. Jasmine sat down calmly. Good. That means it hit something real. They're also contacting leadership. Nash is getting pressure to censor you. Then Nash can decide who he works for, the people or the president's PR team. The reaction was spreading beyond Washington. Political blogs were already running cryptic headlines. Foreign agent in First Lady's orbit? Unnamed congressman challenges executive travel logs. Social media was beginning to buzz with speculation. Hashtags like Dragan Petrovich and Melania secret meetings were gaining traction. The story was breaking containment, moving from the closed hearing room to the court of public opinion. And in that arena, the White House's usual tactics of denial and deflection might not be enough. The truth had a way of finding daylight, especially when it involved potential national security breaches at the highest levels. If you believe truth matters more than power, hit that like button right now. The White House press secretary gave an impromptu briefing that didn't name Jasmine or mention Petrovich, but made their position crystal clear. There is absolutely no basis for the dangerous speculation being floated by certain members of Congress. The First Lady's travel has always followed proper protocol. Any insinuation otherwise is not only false, it's reckless. They called it false, but they didn't call it fabricated. That nuance wasn't lost on anyone. Behind closed doors, the White House response was panicked. Melania ordered a total lockdown on her communications. 3 aides were quietly dismissed within 36 hours. One of them a junior scheduler with access to the same calendar entries Jasmine had received. Meanwhile, Jasmine's committee access was suddenly throttled. Meetings were mysteriously postponed. Her press office was hit with document requests. Her email accounts were flagged for an unexpected security audit. Retaliation, Lionel muttered. Means we're close, Jasmine nodded. But pressure wasn't only coming from the White House. Some of Jasmine's own party allies were getting cold feet. One congresswoman pulled her aside. Jasmine, I say this with love. Walk away while you still can. This isn't a fight you can win. They'll smear you, shut you down, break you in ways you can't prepare for. Jasmine didn't flinch. I didn't come to Washington to be liked. I came to protect the people who can't afford for us to play pretend. If someone's using the First Lady to run side games that change foreign policy, I'm not going to smile and pretend it's nothing. The battle lines were being drawn across Washington. Lobbyists were making calls. Donors were whispering concerns. Media outlets were choosing sides, some painting Jasmine as a reckless attention seeker, others praising her courage in challenging the powerful. Fox News ran segments questioning her motives and methods. MSNBC hosts wondered aloud what the White House was hiding. CNN panels debated the ethics of using leaked documents versus the public's right to know about potential security breaches. Twitter erupted with partisan warfare, with Stand with Crockett trending alongside reckless accusations. But through it all, one fact remained stubbornly present. No one was directly denying that Melania Trump and Dragan Petrovich had met. They attacked the messenger, questioned the documents, criticized the process, but the central allegation remained unaddressed. And in Washington, what isn't denied often speaks louder than what is. If you stand with those who speak truth to power, hit subscribe now. The evidence kept mounting. An anonymous Homeland Security source revealed Petrovich had traveled through Dallas under diplomatic exemption with clearance directly from the executive office. A European journalist reported spotting him at a private estate in France, rented by a U.S. political family with ties to the administration. Jasmine stared at the documents late into the night. The man was untouchable, and somehow Melania, whether knowingly or not, had become the shield around him. When House leadership warned her to back off, Jasmine called their bluff. She sent a letter to every member of the Ethics Committee with copies of the sealed logs attached. Then she walked to the Capitol Press Gallery and delivered the shortest, most devastating statement of her career. I have reviewed evidence that suggests a foreign national with known ties to international finance and restricted art trafficking has accessed the inner circle of our executive branch without proper vetting. The First Lady appears repeatedly in connection with this individual. I am not accusing her of wrongdoing. I am demanding answers about how it happened and why no one is asking those questions. If protecting national security makes me the target, so be it. The statement exploded across media platforms. The president's legal team didn't call her a liar. They called her reckless with context, which told Jasmine everything she needed to know. Inside her own circle, the lines were clearer now. Some backed her quietly, others distanced themselves, too worried about their donors or committee assignments to say much out loud. But one person did reach out. Not an ally, not exactly. Congressman Drew Holstein, a conservative from South Dakota who had never once agreed with her on camera, sent a handwritten note to her office. All it said was, "Keep pushing, even if it stings." Jasmine held that paper for a long time. The note confirmed what she already suspected. This wasn't about partisan politics anymore. This was about something more fundamental, the integrity of America's security systems and the accountability of those in power. Holstein's note was a reminder that beneath the partisan warfare and media circus, there were still people on both sides who believed some principles transcended politics. National security was one of them. The protection of America's interests against foreign manipulation was another. And the basic expectation that even the most powerful figures in government couldn't simply erase security protocols when inconvenient, that was perhaps the most important principle of all. Then came the smoking gun that changed everything. If you believe in accountability, drop a like right now. That evening, Lionel burst into Jasmine's office visibly shaken. "You need to see this." He handed her a phone showing grainy security footage leaked from a foreign source. Petrovich and a woman who looked unmistakably like Melania walking into a back entrance of the Prague auction hall. "We've confirmed it with facial ID software," Lionel said. "It's real." The footage was proof Jasmine hadn't expected to get. Now it wasn't just about her accusations. The world had seen the image. Who was this man? Why had she been there? Why were the logs hidden? But Jasmine's final bombshell would be even more devastating. Sunday morning, a flash drive appeared under her office door. On it was an audio recording, crisp, verified, clearly European in origin, of Dragan Petrovich speaking to an unidentified man. "She doesn't know what she's giving me," Petrovich said. "I smile, she opens doors. I mention art, she tells me schedules. She believes it's personal. That's why it works." Just 23 seconds, but utterly devastating. Melania Trump, intentionally or not, had become a conduit, a passive vulnerability wrapped in trust, used by a man who understood how power bends around perception. Jasmine didn't feel triumphant. She felt exhausted, not just from the fight, but from the truth it revealed. That systems don't fall apart because of big conspiracies. They rot slowly from the moments no one questions. She sent the audio to a secure server and called Chairman Nash. "You'll have everything by noon. This needs to go before the committee, and if you try to bury it, I'll make it public. You know I will." There was silence, then a sigh. "You sure about this, Jasmine?" "I was sure the moment I saw her name beside his." By late afternoon, the full package was delivered to both House Intelligence and Ethics Committees. Still no official White House response, but the silence now screamed louder than any denial. The conversation across the country had changed. Not everyone believed Jasmine. Some still dismissed it all as politics. But others were asking harder questions. How could someone like Petrovich get so close without detection? Why were his meetings never recorded? Who else knew and said nothing? In small towns, in living rooms, in message boards and podcasts, people began to speak about government not as a single corrupted force, but as a chain. One that breaks not at its weakest point, but where the people in power stop asking why. The footage and audio recording spread like wildfire across the internet. Your Petrovich tapes became the top trending topic worldwide. Late-night hosts incorporated the scandal into their monologues. Political cartoonists had a field day depicting Melania as an unwitting puppet and Petrovich as the puppet master. Foreign media outlets, less constrained by American political considerations, ran detailed analyses of the potential security implications. Intelligence experts appeared on news programs discussing how foreign operatives cultivate access agents, people who don't realize they're being used as conduits for information and influence. The White House remained in damage control mode. neither confirming nor denying specific allegations while attacking the irresponsible circulation of unverified materials. But their strategy was failing. The evidence was too compelling. The implications too serious to be dismissed as partisan attacks. This had transcended politics. It was now about national security, about the vulnerability of America's highest offices to foreign manipulation. And at the center of it all stood Jasmine Crockett, no longer just a congresswoman, but a symbol of what one person with courage could do when faced with a system designed to protect itself at all costs. The aftermath wasn't a clean victory. Not everyone believed Jasmine. Some dismissed it all as politics, but others began asking harder questions. How could someone like Petrovich get so close without detection? Why were his meetings never recorded? Who else knew and said nothing? 2 weeks later, Petrovich disappeared. Interpol issued a soft notice, but no arrests were made. Rumors placed him in Morocco, Malta, somewhere off the books. Melania remained First Lady, though her schedule became nearly invisible. No more solo trips, no foreign meetings outside official diplomacy. She never addressed the footage, never mentioned Petrovich's name, never confirmed, never denied. Some stories don't get neat endings. They leave you standing in the hallway wondering how long it's been happening and how many people were fine pretending they didn't see it. Jasmine didn't need to win the news cycle. She didn't need to be a hero. She just needed to make one thing clear, that silence at a certain level becomes complicity, and that even one voice in the right room at the right moment can shake the walls. Because power only wins when no one risks losing, and Jasmine Crockett was never afraid to lose if it meant someone else finally had to answer. The ripple effects continued long after the headlines faded. Quietly, without fanfare, new protocols were implemented for executive family travel. Security clearance procedures were tightened. Congressional oversight of diplomatic exemptions was strengthened. These weren't revolutionary changes. They were small patches on a system that remained largely intact. But they represented something important, an acknowledgement that the system had failed, that accountability matters, that no one, not even those closest to the president, was above scrutiny when national security was at stake. For Jasmine, the personal cost was substantial. She faced continued attacks from certain media outlets. Fundraising became more difficult. Some doors in Washington that had once been open to her were now firmly closed, but other doors opened. People who valued integrity over access, truth over comfort, began to seek her counsel. Young staffers and aspiring politicians looked to her as an example of courage in an institution that often rewarded conformity. She hadn't set out to be a symbol, but that's what she had become. Proof that the system, for all its flaws and self-protective instincts, could still be moved by one person willing to stand alone. In the end, that was perhaps the most important lesson of the Petrovich affair, that power depends on our collective willingness to look away, to accept the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. And when even one person refuses to look away, when they insist on asking the questions no one wants to answer, the entire edifice of power can be forced to bend, if not break. If this story made you think differently about accountability, truth, or how much can happen behind closed doors, hit subscribe. There's more to say, and someone needs to say it.